Let's go live.
We are live. What's up? This is Tarot Oracle with Dr. Mystical Tarot. Once again, we're here
Hello, everybody.
to discuss. What are we here to discuss, Dr. Mystical?
Well, we are talking about the 2020 decks of glory, our favorite decks of this year,
Decks
published
of
this year.
Glory. The ones that really shine, the ones that made the difference.
That's right. The ones we ended up with, right?
Well, at least to us. Yeah, that's true.
Right. Because there was a billion decks that were published this year.
This year is a ton of decks. It just,
Yeah.
to the point of just being ridiculous. There were so many decks. It's just like, I like to buy any that are good, but it came down to there's so many that I had to just do like the cream of the crop type thing, you know?
Yeah, and the other thing I noticed was I'm start looking at the collection and going into the future, and even looking back at like this year, what they're doing. I don't want to say shady things. Doesn't sound, it gives it a connotation, but what they're doing is they're releasing a deck and then they're releasing a mini, or they're releasing a deck and they're releasing another deck version with gilded edges, and so they're playing with it to get you to either I don't know, maybe up purchase a bit bigger deck or purchase more decks if you're a collector,
Yeah,
because I
speaking of
have a
which,
fair amount of minis.
do you want to start with the deck that you bought and then they released the deluxe version?
Yeah,
on you?
right. Yeah, so this is the deck, right? So this is there we go. Murder. I don't know, that's backwards, right? So so Murder of Crows, that's the deck. I'm gonna transform that a little bit. Hang on. I'm gonna go and flip myself over, so so that everything.
It's the red rum. It's the red rum.
It's like the red rum. And see, now that shining. Might be interesting. That might be. There we are. Now we're cooking with gas. All right. So Murder of Crows, I think, was for me the I really love this deck. I love that it's gothic. I love the darkness of it. And I love the kind of the pencil sketching of it. I mean, the box kind of shows you what the cards look like internally or on the cards themselves. But the interesting thing here is, like, when I opened the box, I was like, yes, it should be red, right? Like, it should have a pop of red. That's all part of it. And I'm really glad, because Goddess Elite, my friends in Cleveland, gave me this deck for some work that I did. So I'm really happy that I got it. That's what the deck looks like. Wouldn't that look just so much better with a little pop of red? It does look better with a pop of red, as it turns out. And that is the limited edition of the deck, which came out like a month and a half afterwards. I think it was a commenter on your channel that said something to me about that. And I was like, that's frustrating. That's frustrating. If you had to buy them and you really like this deck, I'd buy the limited edition. But yeah, Murder of Crows. It's a fun deck, and once you get into some of the darker imagery and symbolism for the deck, it makes more sense. But that's not a deck that you liked.
Well, I'm not saying that I'm trying to fiddle with this thing, trying to figure this out. I'm technology challenged, even though I do it all day, every day. But that's just me.
Yeah.
Okay, I have no idea. Solo layout. Okay, let's go to me. The Heaven and Earth resembled a lot of that deck. I thought was kind of interesting, but the Heaven and Earth, which has it's black and white, but it has a little touch of just small amounts of color.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of interesting. It reminded me a lot of the Murder of Crows. So I'm not like fully against black and white decks. It's just that I like a little bit of color in them. I mean, I do like the Hermetic Tarot, which is black and white. I think that works great.
Yeah.
But I do like a little splash at a minimum.
Yeah. No, I like the Heaven and Earth Tarot. I like kind of the subdued, I think I've lost my focus. Let me change my.
Is that Woody Allen movie where the guy was out of focus?
So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's like, I do like the black and white decks, and that's fine. There's just been so many black and white decks hitting that I think that little touch of color really adds that bit of pizzazz. And I like the Heaven and Earth Tarot for that very reason, right? It has that sort of Victorian kind of subdued coloring thing. And then there's these touches of color in the right places. And Murder of Crows it's a great deck to use. It's a lot of fun to use, but man, I would just be so much happier if it had that little splash of red. Maybe they'll release another limited edition where they'll use like splashes of silver or blue or something.
Well, they already kind of have that. They have a gold, sort of a gold gilded edge with a gold highlights on it with the original Rider-Waite. They had a lot of those this year. Did you remember those?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and I like that. I think at some point though, I'm going to start to lose. I begin to lose a little bit of my zeal for the kind of everything's coming out like that now. So I'm starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed by that notion. And I like minimal stuff, but
yeah, there's also this new thing this year of just a black background with just lines. So there was at least 30 decks that have that style, where it's just a blank background and just have a line, sort of outline for the deck.
Right.
Yeah,
and even when I was building my minimal tarot, and not that I'm not building it, I just haven't built it in a while, but that's exactly what I was looking at doing, is that sort of blank background, black ink, just digital images of the key symbolism. And that's where I started to pay attention, right? It's like buying a red car. All of a sudden you see red cars.
Exactly. So what else really stood out for you so far this year?
Yeah, so one of the things, and you have a deck that I really like, the Mons Tarot, but the deck that I kind of, the deck along the same lines that came out this year, like in March of this year, was the Shadowland, right? So the Shadowland Tarot was just super fun images, and I love that they kind of, if you read the book with the deck, you realize that it's not just, it's cute. It's a cute deck, right? It's a super cute deck, but it does deal a lot with shadow work and dealing with some of those more those kind of shadowy forces. But what I liked about the Shadowland is it came at a time that I was really interested in shadow work, or starting to make my interest in shadow work a little bit more known to the general world, and people expressed an interest in it. And Shadowland Tarot makes that a little bit approachable, right? There you go, because it has that sort of whimsical look to it. And everybody, I think when I bought it, everybody said, "Oh, this reminds me of, Nightmare Before Christmas." Even though I'm not we can talk about that deck, but
at least this one illustrated the miners.
Yeah, at least this one illustrated the miners, yeah. But I mean, from a video standpoint, it's hard because it's so pencil drawn that it was frustrating to. But it's beautiful. Like, she's just done done such a fun job. And then she released a Lenormand Oracle called House of Shadows. It's the 4th edition, but that's the Lenormand. So same artistic style, just in black and white. And I've never read Lenormand before, and I took a course on YouTube from this guy named Tarot Oracle.
Oh, I know him.
Yeah, it was all right. I binge watched that thing multiple times to get ready to read it on their show. So I think my family was like, "That's enough. That's enough Tarot Oracle for this."
That's enough. We're tired of hearing his voice.
Right. Get headphones, man. What are you doing?
Get headphones, exactly. So another one that I really liked, there was a lot of big box tarot, Heaven and Earth, Gilded Tarot, Shadowland. If you walk into Oracle, we had the Fairy Wisdom Oracle. We had the Wizards Tarot, and we had the Star Tarot. I'm running out of room. And then we had the Edgar Allan Poe Tarot. And I think that was it for all the ones that I got that were big box. What big box successes and failures did you find were out this year?
So Shadowland was a big box deck, and the only other one that I got this year well, that's not true. I mean, I bought Bonefire Tarot, which was a big box deck, and I have a few other ones that are up there. Sunflower Tarot gifted the Otherkin. which is a beautiful kind of extension of the Line Strider, and that's a big box deck as well. And the Darkwood Tarot is another one that came in a big box. And I think what I like about it is I've read so many Little White books that I don't read Little White books anymore. And but the reason why these are, I think, apart from one is I hate the cardboard insert. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's my least favorite thing. But I like the books that are coming with them. They're more of a grimoire, where it gets into not just divination and tarot or oracle or whatever it might be, but also into, like, the Darkwood gets into alchemy and other things like that.
Yeah, I ended up returning the Darkwood. I just didn't like the non-illustrated minors. I think I've gone out on just a rant on non-illustrated minors. The Nightmare Before Christmas by the same author, who's also releasing like 3 other decks soon, has the it's a little better in the Nightmare Before Christmas. I mean, it's not as pronounced, but when it's just completely non-illustrated, and we see that with a couple of decks this year. What do you think about that? I guess
I don't know. I didn't find the Darkwood Tarot. I'm gonna mess around with my cam while we're talking, so you can see the cards the way they're supposed to be seen. But I thought that the Darkwood Tarot, everything's going to get really blippy, people. Just hang on a second while I switch scenes.
I've taken my Dramamine. We're
right, as while I switch scenes so we can get the down angle. Plus, I got to turn things on. So if you see this shirt only goes to here. There we go. Now we got it. And I'll turn off all my super graphics that I'm building and playing with. All right. So this is, like, for me, I didn't find the Darkwood Tarot to be that unillustrated. Like, this is a 4 of Cups. There's the 9 of Pentacles. And I didn't think it was too bad. And I think for me, and you and I talked about this, that this deck for you, that it was like subtle coloring in browns and earthy tones, and that wasn't really your shtick.
Yeah, it wasn't a big favorite of mine. I think that they do actually have some good illustrated minors in the Nightmare Before Christmas, but I think I also had a problem with non-illustrated minors from the Spacious Tarot, which was a bit more egregious in my opinion. But yeah, I think at a minimum, if you do something with it, because people will point to the TDM and say, Tarot de Marseille has non-illustrated minors, but they're illustrated quite well. Right? They really do a good job. But then you have the newest tarot that came out that I ended up canceling my order because they literally just had a blank background and then they just put 3 swords or 4 swords on it with no stylistic interpretations like you have, here, which is great. What you're showing is good too. So. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like, I think every time I use the Darkwood Tarot, I think about you, and I think about our conversation about how it was really just like, it wasn't like from the covering, you think this might have more color to it. But when you get inside of it, it really is kind of like being in woods at weird. Sorry everybody. I just dragged the camera. It being in the kind of woods at night, at dusk, or at dawn, or whatever it might be, and you're kind of so for me, I identified with this because I spent a lot of time in the woods. So for me, this was a deck that was really excited, and this is that same artistic style as Nightmare Before Christmas. Although that is a deck that I really waited to see who would have a review of that first. And because I wasn't gonna, and everybody in the chat will just have to forgive me. I'm not a big fan of Nightmare Before Christmas. There's only so much Tim Burton I can take in my life, and so I didn't get too excited about that. So I wasn't super excited about it.
So what is your appetite for this style? I mean, because she's coming out with a Disney Villains. Is this something that is on your shopping list?
Yeah, no, I looked at that today, Tarot Oracle, the Disney villains, and then there's another one that's a labyrinth, and I'm starting to see more and more of these kind of movie, cultish movie type of decks that are coming out. I don't know. There was just something edgy about the Darkwood Tarots. Maybe because I grew up watching Rankin and Bass. So like The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or The Last Unicorn, these things all kind of fit into that particular style. Even The Nightmare Before Christmas, the style is kind of more Rankin and Bass than it was Tim Burton. But that's just me. But I think that's kind of my style. But I'm done with it. Like, you know what I mean?
You're not going to pick up the other deck?
I don't know. I don't know. But I like the, I don't mind the Darkwood. I like the kind of, the other thing I found, what I like about it is I'm not a big fan of borders, but I like that they use the borders wisely. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, when you match the borders up, you're getting a scene that opens. So that's interesting.
So what do you think about the other big thing this year, which is collage decks? And on screen is the Grimalkin Tarot, which comes in at 10. It was my only 10 purchase this year. And just the cards are just absolutely stunning. I mean, what do you think about the collage decks? What attracted you? What we think were failures? Like, where do you think the collage decks were your favorites?
So, I got excited about the Muse Tarot this year because, because I like the Lightseers Tarot. Like, I really enjoy the art of that. And I particularly enjoyed the Lightseers. And I wanted to get the Muse Tarot, and it released. It didn't release. It was delayed by a couple of weeks. And then one of the folks on the show gifted this to me, which was really a super nice gift. To have it come in, and at first I was a little torn off, kind of thrown off by the collage type work, that sort of kind of digital imagery stuff. But I gotta be honest with you, I really kind of enjoy, especially like some of these bring in some Lightseers characteristics, but I really like. I'm picky about this. Because it's not necessarily my artistic style, but I really liked moving into this. And that I'm even looking at a deck for next year. It's called the Ferenc Pinter Tarot, and he did Tarot of Inspiration, and this years ago. And this is going to be another deck released, and it's similar style of kind of it's not a collage deck necessarily, but it has similar images of people that so for me, this deck kind of brought me into some images. There's the strength card. One of my folks, Lakin's in the chat, and this is her card because she got it for like 8 months straight on the show.
So what do you look for? So you see a collage deck, there's so many, literally. I think there was almost 40, I think 30 to 40 that were released this year. What do you look for if you're going to shop for a collage deck?
So I think what I look for particularly is I want to start in part of my kind of tarot collection, and where I'm moving it is that the tarot collection is more representative of the world that we live in. And so I'm looking for cards that are more diverse. I'm looking for cards that represent different ethnic types and racial types and orientations and all sorts of different things. This has become a real I don't want to say it's become a real passion, but one of the things that I become keenly aware of is that sometimes tarot isn't as representative of the world that we live in, or as representative of the people that read tarot. And so I look for that sort of thing. And I want it to be complementary. And so I think Christiane just does a good job of that, and in kind of building things in. And I'm looking. So those are some of the things, but I generally do not look for collage type decks.
So is this like low on your list of decks to that you shop for, or what would be?
It would be something I would be interested in looking at, but I would have to really want. I'd really want to. It wouldn't be something I would buy early with limited images. It would be something I want to see more of. I'd want to see more images of the cards to make sure that for me, that the story sort of flows, that, like the Muse of Emotions here, like that we can see that there's a theme that kind of evolves here, that it's water and that's the Suit of Cups, and that there's something in the imagery that kind of helps me understand the difference between just this and, say, the Rider-Waite.
I agree. One of the things that attracted me to the Grimalkin was just how much of their personality that was in there. And like you're talking about, when you have a collage deck, instead of just, hey, I'm good at Photoshop, let me jam all these things together and let my camera not focus again. But yeah, the just the personality that she puts in this deck. I mean, you can really sort of tell that this is unique. This is their own style, and this is drastically different than just any other collage deck that I'm just going to sort of run into, which was one of my big factors that made me buy this. In addition, she has the dog, the crow tarot and stuff. And plus she has a lot of nice bonuses. Like it comes in a tin. It had an actual book. It was only like $35 for all of that. So it was a good collection that she came up with.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the Muse Tarot, the other part of the Muse Tarot for me was that I love the Lightseers. And so many people talk about the Lightseers as a kind of a soul deck type feeling. And it really is like reading it with good old jeans on. But I also like Chris Ann, and I think she has a good community around her art and around her work. And I think she's very generous as a creator, and that attracts me too, that we can engage with the artists and talk a little bit about what's going on, or they have there's a kind of a mutual appreciation for what the deck is, not just being a fanboy or anything like that. Not that I'm super fanboyish. But.
Hey, it's okay to be fanboy. I'm just saying. So let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Speaking of
which is the Tarot of the Divine. Yeah, I'm a fanboy of the Tarot of the Divine. That's for damn sure.
I've seen this deck. It's beautiful.
So I guess when you come out with a new deck, there are certain features that you can add to it that obviously are added value features. And the Tarot of the Divine did not one, but all of the added features. They went for the 350 cardstock, which is like it's like a car tire.
You're right.
It's like linen. I mean, it's just massive thick. And it's actually based around tales. And you know that the, who made the Fairy Tale Tarot, the one that is constantly sold out. Now it's like $500 if you want one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know this, but I don't know it.
Yeah. But those type of tarots to where you can actually go and see stories and read about the stories that are behind the cards, and each card has a unique story behind it. It also comes obviously with the book and whatnot. It comes with a hard box. It's like there's making a deck, and even the book is color. There's making a deck, and then there's just, let me add every possible feature that anybody would ever want in a deck, and let me make it for $13. So which is this? And of course, it's sold out for the rest of my life. But
what I love about the Tarot Divine, and it's not in my collection, but what I love about it is the kind of how this gets interpreted. And I love these kind of swooping, almost kind of dreamlike settings that in this deck. And so this is definitely in my short list of decks to get. And I kind of blew myself out of the water and did a kind of big tarot haul, and that sort of kind of blew my enthusiasm for having a lot more tarot for a little while. And but I love the nature of this color. It's not monochromatic, but it's got a tight color scheme to it. It's got nice swooping storylines to the cards, and I really, the Tarot of the Divine is a beautiful deck, and I get that, and I like, so I mean, like for me, this reminds me of like Hero's Journey Dream Oracle, right, with its swooping color schemes, and even though the deck itself isn't necessarily consistent across the deck, but
So, what was your
Hey,
big
Tim.
winner of the year? Somebody that just went way overboard, they over delivered, and just made a big impression on you this year.
Yeah, I nothing super stands out for me. I think probably for me, honestly, it's the Darkwood. Like this, or I could zoom my camera, but I think I'll just do this. So I think it was the Darkwood for me, not because I mean the art is certainly beautiful and what the art kind of represents. I hate the cardboard insert, but I found that if I put the book underneath it, I can hate the cardboard insert a little bit less. But the book itself is full colored. It goes through huge images of the card. There's plenty of space for writing notes if that's what you want, and it gets into more about what's here's Six of Wands, the parade of ghosts, and so you can get into the card and kind of figure out what's going on within the card and see what's happening, and you can get into the storyline. So just like Tarot of the Divine, there's so much more to this deck that I end up spending a lot of time just thinking about what's happening here, and then we start to get into what shadows. Again, I kind of have a shadow side that I'm exploring a little bit more openly, and so it's different types of things in shadow work, how to initiate the deck, some alchemy. And it really, for me, because, outside of reading tarot, I'm a chaos magician. And so I spend a lot of time working on other aspects of my magical practice. And so these are some of the things that I like, the recurring patterns, the getting into the different parts of the suits. And I don't necessarily get into the spreads, but for me, I think this was the book that kind of went over. Up to that point, it had been Shadowland Tarot. Really got excited as soon as I saw it. And I think Shadowland does a good job of this. I think Darkwood just answered more of my questions. And that's for me. I also like that they didn't go with a particularly heavy cardstock, probably like 330. What did you use for your Waterfall Tarot?
330.
330, which I think is the perfect cardstock for tarot cards. Murder of Crows is 350 and it's a drag. It's just any cards that are Bonefire Tarot is the same way. I think there's a certain size of card you got to kind of be mindful of. Like a big Oracle card deck should be thicker cardstock because they'll shuffle better. So Wild Wisdom of the Fairy Oracle, which is a much bigger card, it's real flimsy at that length, right? Structurally, not that we need to get into the engineering of tarot.
Why not?
But maybe we should, right? So,
Maybe
but I
we
think
should.
those bigger, we should advise the publishers what
you
go. Good sense.
Because I'm sure
but
they watch our streams before they make a deck.
They do. Mr. Llewellyn and Mr. Lewis and Ms. Los Scarabeo are just sitting out there going, when are Tarot Oracle and Dr. Mystical going to start talking about how we should build better cards?
Exactly.
But if they're bigger, they should be like, if they're just a much bigger Oracle card size, they should be a thicker cardstock because that's what makes shuffling those a little bit easier because they are so big on your hands.
Let's talk about Tuck Box. Standard Tuck Box Tarot, straight off Amazon, straight from the distributor. What really, as far as me, what really made an impression this year was definitely the Gregory Scott Tarot. The Gregory Scott, that is a YouTuber, and he got with David Corsi, which has made a gazillion tarot decks. But the artwork and the thought that was put into it, because if you look at the Four of Pentacles, for example, that's, just hanging on to it. It's like that you're not hanging on to it. You're desperately trying, but you're losing the grip on that. It's just the reinterpretations that we have on most of these cards, and just the outstanding artwork that they did was just astronomically impressive to me, as far as just a mass market standard tuck box. What sort of hit you this year for just mass market tuck?
I don't know that I have that. I ended up kind of going back through my collection and kind of rounding it out. So, I went through and, Fabio Lestrani, who did Night Sun Tarot, but also probably better known for the Santa Muerte Tarot and Santa Muerte Oracle. did a deck before that called Night Sun, and that's in a standard tuck box. But I not a lot of my decks this year were tuck box decks. The ones that did come in a tuck box were this House of Shadows from Monica Badursky, right? Just a bridge-sized deck that she produced on her own. This guy.
Oh, that one. That one was a
Honestly,
lot better than that
and I'm
Oracle.
not saying this because I'm on your stream. If I hated this deck, I'd tell you. But you know, these are probably my 3 tuck box decks that I really kind of got into this year. There's a few more. This is Fortune Cookie Oracle by V Love and Crystals, and this is the Game Crafter version. She went to another print on demand service for other versions of this deck. But these are kind of my tuck box. These are my tuck boxes. I'm cool with tuck boxes. I'll be honest with you. I mean, when I travel, or when I used to be able to travel, I would take tarot cards with me, which is a lot easier to travel with than, say, dowsing rods, by the way. But these big giant boxes, this is a 5-pound item in my suitcase. It takes up room for 5 pairs of socks. I gotta choose. It's tarot or underwear. And
You don't do tarot bags?
I don't really do tarot bags. I have my rider weight lives in a bag, and I have another deck called the Oracle of Nightmares, and it lives in the same bag, only because I have a bag. And I was sent another. That's not true. I have one more deck that I got from a creator that I know in real life, and she just released. It's called Tricks and Treats Oracle. And it also came in a tuck box and in a bag, but I leave it in its tuck box. I'm kind of a tuck box fan.
So what was your big indie decks? People that just either print on demand or they shipped it to you. What made an impression for you this year?
Yeah, so kind of these are my big 3 indie decks. There's one more that's on my shelf that was released in 2019 called Tarot in Space. Which it's beautiful, and I play with tarot under UV lighting. That deck is hot under UV lighting. Let me just tell you, that thing is it is beautiful, and it came out of her artwork around a comic book series, but I love the reinterpretation of it. I love the purpling, the kind of the purple, blue, teal color scheme. That's of all my indie tarots, that's my favorite tarot deck of the year, although it was released in 2019 and I just kind of discovered it. But I think of all the kind of there towards the end of the year, even right now, I'm working on finding indie card tarot decks, things that are a little bit more interesting than mass market right now. And these were kind of I had to have House of Shadows because I've been goaded into Lenormand for years. I never really understood why. Now I understand why. V Love and Crystals is just such an amazing person. I'm gonna get to this one. I'm not just brushing it off, but I love the Fortune Cookie Oracle. The story of it is so fun. But I love that, first of all, that it has a null. I think that's really cool.
You could write
I like the imagery of it. That looks so much better on a better camera than it did on our webcam. But I love the kind of the notion of it. I'm in person, the twists on the cards are a little easier to read, but even that's pretty good to read. But I kind of like the notion of that. And then honestly, and I'm not fanboying because I'm on your stream, Tio. I'm not at all. But I really love the Waterfall Tarot. Like, it's an indie card deck. I think it's really well done, and people, it flows really easily. No pun intended. But I mean, apart from the fact that it's rider weight, but it's got these really kind of cool updates, and it's just a much lighter way to look at the rider weight. It's a much more seemingly much more personal deck to me from the rider weight. So, and honestly, when I got it, I said if I were ever allowed to go and meet in person and do fairs again, this is going to be the rider weight that I bring.
Oh, well, thanks.
You're welcome, man. It's a beautiful deck, and it has candy in places that I wouldn't have put candy. So
It's candy in places. There you go. One of my favorites. This is a reprint, so I guess I'm cheating. I mean, I cheat. That's what I do. But one of the reprints and one of the favorites that for this year for indie is obviously going to be the Monstera. I missed out on the first time that was out, and obviously this is a second edition which was out this year. So I picked up that. She did have another deck, but it looked so sort of similar, sort of samey that I didn't want to go with that. But this is one of my indie favorites this year. That and obviously the Grimalkin I think really stood out as again, Joanna just went the extra mile. You really oversized cards. They're thick. We don't have any gilded edges or anything, but that's a pretty thick card there. And just everybody, when you put it out on the table, it really sort of gets attention. A lot of people are like, what is that deck? So you got to make sure and obviously put it on screen. Otherwise my stream will just be half of the comments will be, what is that freaking deck? That's just amazing,
Yeah, absolutely. So someone in the chat just said, yeah, the Fortune Cookie Oracle was not, someone said it's $80. When I bought that deck, it was not $80. I mean, it wasn't, Game Crafter is never super cheap. Because and that's where I have my dice hosted and things like that. But because it's print on demand, it's going to always cost a little bit more, plus shipping and all these other kind of cool things. But yeah, I think it was, who was it? It said I'm going to have to scroll up to kind of find it. Somebody, I think it was Astro Ascension, I think is the one who said it, that it was $80.
Jesus.
And that's banana pants expensive. Like if yours and I love the deck. I think it's fun. I enjoy working with V. I think she's doing really interesting, creative things. $80 is too much to spend, and I'll bet she'd say the same thing. She'd be like, no joy, that's too much. And that might also be why she shifted over to make playingcards.com. But remember too, a lot of these publishers, so it's not just and I'm not making excuses at all. In the pandemic response, logistical lines have slowed down. Shipping lines have slowed down. Importing, exporting has slowed down. So for the last several years, even the pandemic response, but even before that, a lot of these companies that rely on international products because they have to, because nothing was made here, their pricing has gone up astronomically.
Yep.
And so, I get it, but I also get it.
The Fortune Cookie also really made an impression on me, and just how realistic all the pictures are. I mean, her and her husband went to the detail of putting the transparency for. Oops, wrong one. Yeah. Putting the transparency for. Look at the transparency on some of the paper. So right. Look at the extra mile that she went and her husband went on that transparency, because the word depression is actually literally wrapped around. It looks realistic.
That's right. It's almost like you can just see the top of the lighting through because it's pressed against the cookie. You can kind of see some. Yeah, I mean, they really did a phenomenal job. And this, for me, helps build a corner of my collection. The shadow, you can kind of see the light streaming in on The Truth is Revealed. Mm-hmm. Like they went through the extra mile. It took me a while. I thought maybe these are all just on the same plates, but even the plates are different.
Yeah, it's just the cast light, the cast shadows. So everything is just perfect on these. They went through a lot to make these, because there's such an easy way out when you make a deck like that. And that is I'm just going to make the paper white, and I'm just going to put the text on it and wrap it. No. They went the way far into the extra mile for the. That's right. The realism.
Yeah, it's a good deck, and for me, it kind of built out a corner of my collection, which was Food Tarot. That I only had one deck of Food Tarot, and now I have
more
two.
Food Tarot.
Apparently, I do. I have a whole. We read. I read the Food Fortunes Tarot frequently enough. Not as much anymore, but frequently enough, and that's a lot of fun. Oh, I just put that back in your box. That'll screw me up later down the road.
Don't do that. You'll be like that waterfall tarot. It looks different. What the hell's wrong with tarot? It looks a lot better. So another one that impressed me this year was the Gilded Terror Royale. Obviously, I'm a Chiro super fanatic. I probably dumped quite a bit of money. I mean, you see the claws. I probably have like 7 of his claws, and I actually bought the banner that you can buy for having at fairs and stuff. But it's a long sort of a wait for me to get a Chiro that was not only borderless, but really went into a lot of the extra details. So I think Chiro is kind of, just my personal opinion, I think Chiro is kind of in his prime at this point for just sort of rounding off, because a lot of the decks before this one look kind of samey, but I think he just went the extra mile on this and the added detail. And I mean, look at all the just little detail within the foliage and whatnot. I think he just really pushed the envelope for this particular deck.
Yeah, no, and you definitely have a style, right? So, and this, I mean, when I saw this come out, I knew that this was. I mean, I can't imagine. I was trying to figure out how is Tarot Oracle going to get this thing before it's even released, because, yeah, and the Gilded Tarot is really beautiful. Like, look at the detail in the artwork. It looks a lot like some of the Hay House stuff that came out from. I almost said her name, but I mean the other guy. But some of the more kind of Hay House type decks that come out with the really intricate, kind of almost romantic style kind of drawings, and yeah, Radley Valentine. That's the name I was looking for. I was going to say Valentino, but that's a different thing altogether, I'm imagining.
Yeah. Yeah, you heard that, right? That Chiro said. I forgot, what was it, Facebook? He said he's not going to do any more tarot decks due to the piracy. And the piracy on his decks is rampant.
Yeah.
It's literally everywhere I could find his decks, and they're like, $10 or $5 or something. You're like, that's not legitimate.
And Lightseer, Chris Ann with Lightseers went through the same thing where her decks were up on Lightseers was up on Wish, it was up on Walmart, and they were both counterfeits.
On Walmart?
Yeah, well, yeah. When I went to look at the Walmart link for it, it was not. So there was like a telltale sign in her on the piracy that it didn't include the words "and 78 card guidebook." And when I went to look at the Walmart link, and I don't know, I'm not going to disparage Walmart. I don't need the Walmart people coming after me. But like what I found it in many places, and probably not because they made a conscious choice, they probably just sourced a bunch of purchases, and this purchase happened to include a counterfeit card, or they were using bad images, whatever it may be. But yeah, that's one of the other kind of interesting things that happened a lot this year was more and more piracy of decks, especially like around Gilded Tarot. And you can see why. It's a beautiful deck. It's not the least expensive deck that's out there, and a lot of these counterfeiters are coming out and producing crappy copies that the coloring's all weird and off. And
yeah, what do you think about Paula's comment talking about indie decks are basically double the price of a standard deck? I mean, you can get the Gilded Tarot box deck with a nice book for the same price as you can get with just an indie deck in a tuck box. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Paula, one of the decks that it's my soul deck. So if we're going to talk about soul decks, I'd have to go grab it off my shelf. But it's called the 40 Servants. It's the deck that it is the cornerstone deck of my magical work, and I love this deck. And the creator Tommy Kelly lives in Ireland or England, and he produces that deck, and it's a U.S. based print on demand. Mm-hmm. And I think I was just reading in one of the groups that I belong to around 40 Servants, someone had ordered that deck in January and just got it about 3 weeks ago, and they were living in Brazil or South America somewhere. Now I think that Paul is exactly right, that's just, I think that's too much. I think that's crazy. And I think that, one of the things that I think we can look at is, are there print on demand services in multiple countries? And how does that start to, that's Sunflower gives us good advice. Don't get your decks from Wish or Walmart. So
anything with a W.
Anything with a W won't Wish, Walmart.
There you go. So show us some more decks. What else did you like this year?
Yeah, so again, I mentioned like that one of the things that I'm really focused on and thinking about is getting decks that are more representative of the world that we live in and our art and our practice and who we are as readers. And I think that that's really exciting. So This Might Hurt Tarot was one of the decks that I loved because it showed not just more gender and racial equality, but also orientation and ability, and reinterpreted it. And I really think that she did an amazing job with this deck, and I love reading with it. I love the kind of the cartoony way. And again, remember I said like shadow work can be intimidating, and sometimes if you've not thought about inclusion or representation, diversity, justice, that can also be intimidating. And so finding ways, artists are the ones who are going to find the ways to make that an easier kind of road in. And so that was one of the decks. And then another deck that this isn't a 2020 deck, but another deck that I got, and honestly I got because Ms. Wheat's Tarot did a walkthrough on this deck, and for whatever reason, that walkthrough I fell in love with that walkthrough. And that was the Modern Witch, which I think if you're going to look at reinterpretations of, and this is another one where it's like, Cadillac cardstock, super gloss. It slips out of my hands all the time. And you think about like this, just here's kind of standard tarot card thickness, same deck. Look at the difference on these cards. So, but I think for me, the Modern Witch is the clearest kind of diversity, inclusion, representation update of the Rider-Waite, because she sticks so clearly to the Rider-Waite intention and symbolism, but then reinterprets it in gender and racial updates, as well as kind of just societal updates. It's just such a much more relevant deck, and I really love the interpretation of the Modern Witch. For me, of the two decks, like if someone says, talk to me about representation in tarot, I would say let's go get the Modern Witch and let's take a look at that against the standard Rider-Waite.
Yeah, that is fantastic. It has a lot of feeling towards the This Might Hurt as well. Just the fun style. Let's grab it, bring it in, make it more modern type thing as well. That's really nice.
So CM says Modern Witch is basically my main deck right now. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, it's a great deck to read with. And I think it's important that our practice, like as tarot readers and oracle readers, our practice should be representative of the people who are sitting down across the table from us and having a reading and enjoying that reading. Even in the last just few days, I think we've realized the importance of the words of that person looks like me, and how important that is. Ooh, the Fairy Wisdom Oracle.
Yeah, so let's sort of round out with some Oracle. Fairy Wisdom Oracle. This one really hit me hard. I looked at it and I was like, Jesus, I have to have that. It's one of the decks that you're just like, okay, there's no really thought involved. You just sort of instinctively hit the buy button on it. And that was this one. It has a hardbound book. It's not color, but it is a hardbound book. It is so cool. The graphics and the images when they're out of focus are just amazing.
Yeah, the blur effect on these cards is
the blur. It's like the Heaven and Earth Tarot, except a little bit more blurry.
right, which is perfect to me. That's
and of course I don't have the deck right here. I don't know where I put it, but anyway, this one really sort of hit me as a must buy. The card quality was great. The cards look excellent, even though I don't have them anywhere around here. So we'll go to you and talk about your Oracle decks that you liked while I go try to find these.
There you go. So for me, like one of the oracles that I got excited about, and one of the things that we're doing on the channel is each month people can kind of pick whatever, like the indie deck of the month, and I'll go out and purchase that deck and include that into the show. And for October it was between, I think it was like between Mons Tarot and a deck called Carnival at the End of the World, and I'll have to go back and look. That might not be the exact name, and that was like a weird, super weird deck. But then my friend Barb St. John, who I know in real life, like, and I actually have like read next to her. She's wonderful, and she's like super, she's like super vintage, super rockabilly, awesome. And she released this Tricks and Treats Oracle right at the beginning of October, and she kind of announced it at the end of September. I was really, really excited about it. But I just love, the vintage. I needed a Halloween deck that wasn't all doom and gloom and spooky fun. So something childlike and super fun. This was one of my favorites. This is one of my very favorites for Halloween to read, and I just love the kind of the kid-like images of things, because I'm old enough that these images are part of my kind of growing up, that sort of artistic style, and that's a lot of fun to read with. And probably the other one, I don't want to shortchange. Sunflower got me this one. Thank you, Sunflower, because this is a beautiful beautiful Line Strider edition. It's a super great deck. And the other one that's kind of out there, T.O., is this. I saw this on Night Reader's stream. I think V, Love and Crystals and I were on the same stream. We saw him throw one of these cards, and we're both simultaneously chatted, "What deck is that?"
Oh, is that Candish?
Yeah, it's Lucy Cavendish.
Lucy Cavendish, yeah. The Lucy Cavendish decks, man. I think I have every single one of them.
And they're just, look how fun this deck is. Like, it's super, super fun. And I'm throwing them in reverse, so that's real helpful.
Yeah, she can do no wrong. I mean, if she just drew something on a piece of paper, I would want it.
Yeah, and I like, so there's some of this again goes back to a little bit of that Rankin and Bass artwork style that I kind of dig. There was a movie, I don't know, there was like a cartoony mixed media movie once called The Wizards. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But if you're not, you should go kind of, it's definitely weird. But that's kind of my thing. Like but like some of the cards remind me of those characters, the Stardust card particularly. But she really can do no wrong, right?
I don't know what she edits in, but I've used Photoshop since it was first released. I can't even do anything like this. I look at it and I'm just like, what did you do? Is this watercolor? I know it's Photoshop touched, but is it originally watercolor? Is it originally acrylic pastels? Yeah. I have no idea at all.
Yeah, it's just such a fun deck, and that. So for me, this is not a 2020 deck, right? This is like 20. I don't know, 15, 16, something like that. But it's still mandatory, no matter what year it is. Lucy Cavendish. All right. No, absolutely.
So I hyped about it for 20 minutes. I actually went and found it. This is the Fairy Wisdom Oracle. It does have a Lucy Cavendish feel to it, but just the artwork is just so stunning on this deck. They really just did. They went all out, and it's borderless. Good card stock. There's a ton of cards in it. It's not one of the oracles that you get that has like 30 cards, and it just made an impression on me. It really just made an impression on me. So
that is beautiful. I'm gonna have to go look for that deck. So what's got you excited, Tio? What has you excited for 2021?
For 2021, I haven't seen anything that just thrills me. Oh, well, speaking of which, look, I see a segue to my next deck. Hang on. There we go. Here we go. So Lion says, I'm getting the Thoth deck and I feel called to it. Would love to hear you guys' opinion on this, say, to the modern decks. Well, Lion, good news. I'm coming out with a Thoth derivative deck that is an approachable Thoth. And when you read with it, it will teach you the Thoth. So you just look at the cards and you instantly know what all of the cards mean. So that's my goal. That's my goal. So that's 2021, hopefully.
Thoth isn't my is not my wheelhouse. Thoth is not my wheelhouse, so I really can't speak to it. And I think twice Tarot Oracle asked for a reading around the Thoth, and both times was like no. And I think that was more about me than everything. I was just pushing my interest out there.
So what has you excited for 2021?
So there's a couple of good decks out there that I'm really interested in. You're watching my wrists here, so because that's. Let me see if I can. Can I share? Am I allowed to share a thing? Here we go.
You're allowed to do anything.
I guess it depends on you, I guess. So
add to stream. There we go.
there. Oh, hey, look, there we go. And I'm in dark. Sorry, folks, I'm in dark reader. Otherwise, I guess it doesn't matter now because we don't see my face. So we just get that on the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, this one moved from 2020 to 2021.
Yeah. So this one's kind of coming out this fall, and I'm looking for it, right? Because it's just, look at some of this artwork. It's just so. Again, it's a little bit of that mixed media type of feel to it, but it kind of all flows a little bit. That's one that I'm really excited about. There's another one called the Shaman's Dream Oracle. I should have had all these kind of pulled up already, but I didn't, so I can't.
She also has an oracle as well as the tarot that you.
She does. Showed. Yeah, she does. And and there's another one. There's like So and I think it's like Tarot of the Mystical Moments that has like a Mystical Moments oracle. Is maybe I'm not thinking about that the right way, but Shaman's Dream Oracle for me this. So one of the decks I love is the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle, that's Rasuli is the artist on it.
That is really pretty.
And look how I love the flow of this. I love the flow of this card. And
the lighting effects are really nice on that.
Yeah, isn't it? It's like I'm super, super excited about it. And then there's another one. Let's see. There's another one, Sacred Forest Oracle, which is going to have that fairy feel, but there's a lot of pictures of it out there. Tarot of Oppositions. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that, but this one I kind of liked as well. I don't know if it's not a lot of images, but this for me, this had a little bit of that. This spoke to me because we can see the reverse. Right, so some of the art it's subdued art, but we can see the reverse of the images below and the opposition of things, and I think those are some of the things those are some of the kind of the early things. I don't want to tip my hand a little bit too early because I haven't really kind of made a lot of final choice. There's another one out there that is going to come out mass market, which was on Kickstarter called The Beauty of the Horror or The Beauty of Horror Tarot. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of fun and whimsical and dark and scary all at the same time.
Yeah, I have like 13 Kickstarters that are waiting, but some of them will be a 2021 and
2023. I'm still waiting for my glow-in-the-dark plants from Kickstarter from 5 years ago. So
the Liz Houston, I know they got pushed to next year, and the Mystical Moments, I heard, got pushed to next year. There's a lot of stuff, like you're talking about, pandemic delays and whatnot. There's a lot of decks that are indeed pushed to next year that were scheduled for October or early November, which is kind of bad, but the Liz Houston deck I'm pretty excited about, and the one that you just showed, I got both those on order. There's a few that are interesting. It seems like that the best tarots, they tend to wait until the fall of the year to release it. So some of the cream of the crop, we're just going to have to wait, it appears.
Yeah, but I mean, you said something about this earlier this summer to me too, that that fall just becomes this kind of glut of tarot decks that come out, and then. They're really kind of competing for your dollars at that point. And they're all coming out from the same publishers, which makes no sense to me. But why would they compete for our money? But those are some of the. I think that I like some of the decks that come out earlier in the year. Shadowland Tarot came out earlier in the year, and I really like that deck and what that deck kind of represented in my work, and so. And that was a lot of fun. And then August hits, and it's like deck a day for 3 months.
It does seem like it. All right. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. As always, you are the extreme guest of the channel. I really appreciate you being here.
Tarot Oracle, I'm happy to join you. I'm glad we could survive October and the rush of tarot fun and and get together and do this. We got to do this again. Maybe another kind of a look ahead. What are we buying for 2021?
That sounds good. Maybe I'll have some stuff ready instead of just be sitting here talking about stuff with no pictures.
Absolutely. Sorry, that kind of hit me right at the last minute. So
I wanted to show the Liz Houston deck and all this other stuff, but I'm like, well, we're kind of wrapping up, so I'm not really sure if I'm going to open the browser and then figure out how to share it. Probably crash the stream. The browser locks up. I mean,
that'd be the way it goes. Yeah, the internet crashes. Yeah, absolutely. I get it.
All right. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I greatly appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.